Welcome everyone to this very, I think, important webinar. There's been some big changes in law recently. There was a little election that you might have heard about. That's what we're here for. We're here to go through what you need to know after this election and what steps you can take to protect your assets for yourself and for your family. We're gonna go through a lot of different subjects here tonight. But as we get into this, we want to take a moment so you kind of see me. I'm Mark Gilfix. This is Michael Gilfix. Hello, for those of you out there. Feel free to wave to the camera. We can't actually see you, but hope you can wave and get some energy. Again, end of the day, but really important topics. You know, what we're about to talk about, these are critical issues that we all need to understand, and so few people do. So just because you're here, it means you're ahead of the game. Most people just don't ever spend time to learn about these issues, but these can mean the difference between families that prosper for generations and families that are stuck in really tough situations. So we're going to go through that. So as we get started here today, I want you to take a moment to think about why you joined us. What got you to join us here today? What are the questions in your head? You know, are you worried about your finances? Are you worried about your family's future? Are you worried about the implications of the election? You just feel overwhelmed. I mean, we live in unprecedented times. We're dealing with a pandemic, a contentious election, changes in tax law, and just a lot of stress. A lot of people changing the way that they're working and living. And it's just a lot to take in. And what Mike and I are here for, it's kind of simple. We're here to help. We want to help deliver solutions on the legal side of this and the legal and financial side of this. We've been doing this for a while.
So let me actually, before we go on, let me just say quickly, and I really want to state the obvious that, you know, we are here to educate. There's no question about that. We're kind of first out of the gate. You know, the election just happened. We're not waiting for somebody else to interpret what's happened. We've done it. We think we're on top of things, let's just say. So we try to be a step ahead, and we are inviting you, those of you who are not yet our clients, to become our clients. It's an understatement that we take it seriously, that we love what we do. We deliver quality. You know, we've been doing it for so long, save families fortunes, frankly. So again, you know, we're going to talk about reviewing your current situation, the couple of key tax issues that confront each and every one of us, one of the propositions and what's going on with the estate tax. Again, you know, we're going to look as a practical matter at what's going on, look to the future, and really focus in on how to help you, each and every one of you, as a family, as a multi-generational family.
Yeah, we truly believe the next 60 minutes could change your family's future. What you're going to learn here tonight is really, really powerful stuff. And we want you to just imagine what's possible, not just for yourself, but for your children and your grandchildren. A lot of the issues we talk about, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it because we're talking about some big numbers. We're talking about long looks into the future. But just imagine what's possible. If you take some of the right steps now, it is incredible what you can achieve. And I'll repeat it now, we're not going to take questions during the talk, but feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A function, and we'll do our very best to get to some at the end if we have some time at the end. We'll get to a couple questions, so feel free to enter those, but we have a lot to get through, so we're going to dive right in. So what are we talking about here today? Our agenda. So we're going to talk about why your living trust must be reviewed. So if you have a trust, you might think I'm good. I did a living trust. You got to take a fresh look. Laws change over time. We're going to talk about that a bit. And if you don't have a living trust, we'll talk about why it's so critical for you to have one. We're going to talk about the secret to protecting assets for future generations from divorce, from lawsuits, and from estate taxes. Incredible trust that we can create. We're going to talk about the implications of the election and, most importantly, Prop 19. I don't think I've ever seen a proposition where there was more confusion and fewer people understood it. It's a big deal. It has some devastating property tax implications for families in California, and there's a deadline before which you have to act. We're going to talk about that, the 40% estate tax, and why you might think it doesn't affect you, but why it might be more of an issue than you think, and what you can do to plan for that. And of course, all this is about protecting your home and your assets. So it all kind of circles back to that. On that note, the family home, that's a big deal.
Yeah, let's talk about that for just a second. You know, a lot of us, most of the folks participating in this webinar, you own your own home. Most of you are in the Bay Area here. So, you know, if you own a home, it's worth at least a couple $1 million, maybe more, you know, depends on where you live. It increases in value relentlessly. You know, every time I think the value of my house can't go up, It does, so it's happening with you. It's happening in every community in the Bay Area. So if it continues the way it's been going, or even close to it, it's going to double in value 8, 10, 12 years at the most. So that means, what that really means as a practical matter is, you might think that right now, oh, my estate's too small, I don't have to worry about estate taxes, the 40% estate tax. You do. You do. We're going to talk about the decrease in the level of protection that's coming in a few years, and why you need to be cognizant of it and steps you can take to avoid it. And we're going to hammer on Prop 19. It is a minefield. Today on KQED, I heard a summary of Prop 19 that was so wrong. If I could find the right phone number, I tried to call them and straighten them out and give them a comment, but I couldn't. So it's everywhere. So the goal is always to protect the home for your family, for your kids, for the grandkids, and it's more challenging than ever, your home and your real property. But we'll tackle it.
And as Mike said earlier, for those of you who are existing clients, welcome. And for those of you who know us, welcome. But we know that a lot of people don't know us yet. So we're going to take just a moment to introduce ourselves and to tell you a little about who we are and where we came from. So I want to introduce my co-presenter here today, Michael Gilfix. So I've known Michael for over 40 years because he's my dad, which may be fairly obvious. There aren't many Gilfixes out there. There's a few. Mike is from a small town in northern Michigan. He grew up in the Midwest. He came out to California to attend Stanford University. He went there as an undergrad and went on to the Stanford Law School and graduated in 1973. And when he graduated, he didn't just join a big firm or a big corporation. He wanted to change the world. He had some of that 1960s idealism. So he, like any good social entrepreneur, rather than just going and doing something, he looked for a need. He wasn't sure what to do. So he wanted to find the greatest areas of social need. He identified two groups: older Americans and Americans with disabilities. And he realized there were not enough legal services or protections for these communities. So he went out and he basically created the field of elder law. He was one of the founding lawyers in America to create this field. He created America's first free legal aid program for the elderly. SALA, Senior Adults Legal Assistance, still exists in Santa Clara County today. And he trained attorneys around the country, testified in front of Congress, raised money. He is directly and indirectly responsible for free legal services for thousands of older Americans and in shaping the laws. He actually coined the term elder law. Why do we know that? Well, he owned the trademark for the term. He ended up donating the trademark for elder law to one of the many organizations he started. Also a leader in the special needs planning space. He started the Disability Law Center in 1976. Went into private practice in 1982 or 83, I think it was, when he had a growing family. He was a co-founder of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. He's written multiple books, articles, featured in the media, TV. He was on KGO radio regularly a few years ago. Truly a leader. He's trained other attorneys, and I'm very proud that he's my mentor as well. And he's a mentor to all of us in our firm. We have a great team. So, and through all of this, he somehow found time to coach all of our little league teams and softball teams and everything for me and my sisters. So on that note, let me introduce my father, Michael Gilfix.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I have to say, coaching kids, nothing is more fun than that. As I have said 100 times, I had more fun than the kids did. And I was a good coach, but I had such a ball. So I can't wait to do it again, with the grandkids. And let me take a moment, then I'll introduce Mark. Mark grew up in Palo Alto, local guy. Also went to Stanford, undergraduate. His major was something called management science and engineering, which is really the perfect combination of topics for Silicon Valley. It's business, it's management type issues, it's integrating information about the internet, knowing how to program. So he did very well as an undergrad at Stanford. When he graduated, he was hired by one of the top international management consulting firms in the world. And he was extremely successful there. He advised Fortune 500 companies, the Department of Defense, on and on. What was valuable about that for us and you is it gave him kind of this macro perspective, kind of this overview of how business works, how it integrates with tax and the government. So that is a practical value time and again here as we do our work. So as he was doing that, he decided to go to law school, and he went to Loyola, a great school in Southern California. Graduated at the very top of his class. He was chosen to be the graduation speaker. And generosity, very important. Generosity was the topic that he spoke about. I still remember the words. We're still trying to live by it, Mark. I just want you to know. Since graduating quite a number of years ago, Mark has emerged as a leader. He's received a number of awards for writing nationally. He's been speaking at national conferences. He's been on the radio, on television, that the acting side of Mark is something you don't know about. Mark also was a successful actor in Southern California. So multi-talented, multi-involved. And you can see how, if you want to, you can track Mark on Facebook. So again, bringing that maturity. And what's so important about it, he brings the perspective of the next generation. So think about that. Continuity. I am the older generation. He is the next generation. He and others in our firm. So it's a perspective that's invaluable for you, because you are families of multiple generations.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to that perfectly. We're proud of our heritage here. We've been in the Palo Alto area for over 38 years and have served clients from San Diego up to Wairika. We serve people throughout the state, and with increasing Zoom meetings, we've served more people throughout all corners of the state in the last few months. And our goal is to provide extraordinary value and return on investment, and to truly get to know our clients as people as well. So, we're a family-oriented firm, and that's what we do.
Yes, that is Mark in his grandfather's arms in the picture. So
yeah, my grandfather, a veteran, so we celebrated him yesterday. He passed away a few years ago. Very proud of that. And our team, it's not just Mike and I. So Francis LaPole in the top left is our tax guru. He was actually just featured in the Mercury News. He was involved in a massive real estate transaction today. Nick Klingenberg and Renee Conrad in the lower right, they are also core parts of our estate planning team. And they meet with a lot of our clients as well. We work as a team. My mom is part of this, Myra Gerson Gilfix, incredible litigators as well. So very proud of our team, and we work as a team together. Now, let's jump into some mysteries and some of the issues we want to explore today. And we want to talk about these in terms of mysteries. So let's talk about a tale of supercharging a plan, Larry and Wyatt. Larry and Wyatt both inherit $2 million, or get the benefit of $2 million from their parents. Larry's father leaves him $2 million. Wyatt's father leaves him $2 million. Both Larry and Wyatt during their lives get divorced. Both of them are in a car accident where they get sued afterwards and lose lawsuits. When Larry passes away, none of that $2 million is left, nothing there for his kids, and definitely nothing there for the grandkids. Wyatt, on the other hand, same divorce, same lawsuit, same finances overall. His children end up with $6 million, and his grandchildren end up with $18 million, a difference of $18 million, $18 million or nothing, starting from the same amount of money. How is this? What's the mystery here?
Now let's go to another mystery that focuses on the residence, on the family home, and look at three individuals here. Excuse me. Okay, so Tom has a $3 million residence. The assessed value, because of Prop 13, is $300,000. He passes away in 2022, and his daughter inherits the house. She decides to rent it out. So she's inherited the family residence. The property taxes go from $3,000 a year to about $30,000 a year. Okay. I'm sorry, Tom. So for Jill, similar circumstance, property of similar value, same assessed value. At her passing away, her daughter gets the house, and she decides to rent out. Excuse me. Actually, Jill decides to live in the house.
Yeah.
Jill lives in the house. Blot out those words a little bit here. Okay. So for her, because her daughter decides to live in the house and make it her residence, the property taxes don't go up to $30,000 a year, but they do go up to $20,000 a year. Okay. Amos, identical circumstances, death in the same year. His daughter takes ownership. But with his daughter, the property taxes don't go up at all. They remain at $3,000. So where's the mystery here?
And because this is such a timely, we're gonna solve this mystery right away, because we think we got to focus on this.
So let's go through what happened with Tom and Jill and Amos. We really want to, we're going to revisit and focus in on Prop 19 many times here today. Okay, so for Tom, property taxes went all the way up because Prop 58, which continues to say until February 16, that if you pass your property to your kid or kids, property taxes don't go up. Eviscerated, destroyed by Prop 19. So his daughter is renting out the property. So there's no property tax protection whatsoever. It's reassessed. Property taxes go all the way up. Now, Jill, remember, here we are. Jill did make it her residence. Now, what I heard on KQED today, and what most have said, if she makes it her residence, property taxes don't go up. Not true. There's a limit, strict limit on the level of protection if you make it your residence. Only $1 million of the assessed value is protected. So her property taxes When the child takes over, even though she made it the residence, the property taxes go from $3,000 is what it was, up to about $20,000. Because again, uh, 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 there's only $1 million worth of protection, and we have a $3 million property. Okay, Amos. So what happened with Amos? Okay, his property taxes didn't go up. And why? Because before February 16 of 2021, he did his planning. He took steps, which we are equipped to do for you, to make sure that property tax protections and low property taxes are retained upon his passing. And look at what this saves. I mean, just basic math. That's going to save between $500,000 and $1 million for his daughter over her lifetime. So there is a deadline, and this approach isn't right for everybody. There's multiple factors we have to think about, but there is an approach that can be taken to protect the property tax protections that are now enjoyed by most of us.
Yeah, and the deadline, February 15th, 2021, to take these actions. So it's important to understand this is an issue and to explore it. Because as Mike said, it's not right for everybody to take these steps, but for many people, it could be one of the most powerful things you ever do. Let's take a step back. So we're talking a lot about estate planning, and a lot of people don't really know what that is. Many of you who are attending maybe have an estate plan, maybe know this backwards and forwards, but if most people don't, because this isn't something you think about all the time. What is an estate plan? Well, usually it's talked about in terms of 3 core documents: revocable living trust, durable power of attorney for finances, and an advanced healthcare directive. We think there should be a 4th document or a 4th set of documents as part of that, family protection trusts for the next generation. But for you, it is 3. If you, whether you're married or not, having a revocable living trust is critical, not just a will. We'll go into that in a second. Durable power of attorney for finance ensures that if you're incapacitated, you've named people who can step in to manage your day-to-day finances to make sure that the business of life stuff is handled. Should not be just a simple check the box form. We see that all the time. That's not good enough. We'll explore why later. Advanced healthcare directives. So that goes to medical decision-making. If you're in the hospital, Lord knows a lot of people are in the hospital right now. If you can't speak for yourself, who can speak for you? You can authorize people ahead of time. And in the time of COVID, we've had a lot of clients come back to us to make updates to these documents or to make sure that they're up to date. Family protection trusts. This is how you can leave assets to the next generation. You wouldn't leave it directly to your kids. You would leave it to family protection trusts. They're a version of dynasty trusts. We'll explore that in a little bit as well. So these 4 key documents we think are critical for any family. The first 3 for mom and dad, or even if you don't have kids, you need those. And if you have a family, we think family protection trust as well. We get a question all the time about why a trust and not just a will. In movies, it's always the reading of the will is the big event. It's not the administration of the trust. Wills are not enough. Even if a will is properly set up, even if everything goes according to plan, if you have a will and if you have any real property, if you have over $150,000 to your name, it's going to have to go through probate. It's going to have to go through the California court system. And if you love going to the DMV and dealing with them or dealing with the IRS, you'll love leaving your family with probate. It sucks. It's, again, totally public. It takes up to 2 or 3 years at times. You're subject to the court's calendar, and it's really expensive. The cost of probating an estate are 2 to 3 times that of administering a living trust if you have a trust in place. And you also hear a lot of the times where a celebrity passes away and all of a sudden there's a story about all they have and where it's going. You're thinking, why do I get to see that? It's because the celebrity probably just did a will. They didn't do a trust. So it's totally public. It also is effective only at death. The person you name as executor can't help you while you're alive with anything. If you're incapacitated, they have no role to play. A trust, on the other hand, is a way of privatizing your estate, setting it up, transferring your assets into it, which is not that hard. When you pass away, it keeps things out of the courts. Not public. The cost is a fraction of a probate. It can be done much more efficiently and quickly, especially if everyone's on the same page. And while you're alive, if you become incapacitated, your trust can help you because your backup trustees who you name can step in to manage your major affairs if you're out of it for a while. And that can be really, really helpful if needed. Again, will doesn't help. And if you have property in other states, by the way, like if my dad got his dream cabin back in his hometown of East Tawas, Michigan, if he had just a will, there'd be a probate in California and a probate in Michigan. So you got to deal with property in every state, a separate court proceeding. So not a good thing. You need a living trust.
About the trust, they're not fungible. You are not vanilla. You are not generic. your trust shouldn't be vanilla and generic. It has to be structured appropriately for you. So, you have family circumstances that we have to address. And in terms of the structure, many of you, most married couples who have a trust, you have what is generically called an AB trust. And that means that at the first death, the estate divides into two subtrusts. And that was done for a very good reason. That was the approach you had to take to be sure that we protected the maximum level of estate tax for each spouse. Had to do that. There's been some changes in evolution of the law, and we can still capture the maximum level of estate tax protection with an alternative approach that some people find more comfortable. It's a little bit simpler, but again, there's no one answer that's right for you. So the most important point is, no off-the-shelf trust. There's no simple solution. There's no one trust that fits everybody. We have to think about many tax issues. There are capital gains, estate, gift, property tax issues when we structure a trust. And what's right for you is going to depend on your proclivities, your concerns, and not just the size of your estate, but the nature of your estate. Where are the assets? Things like that. So, things change. You change, you evolve. The law has most certainly evolved. So if we haven't looked at your trust, or if you haven't been working with us, if your trust hasn't been reviewed in the last couple of years, it needs to be. I mean, it's quite that simple. There are so many benefits you can capture by upgrading it and looking at what the law now allows in terms of increased protections. So let's make sure it's right.
Now let's talk about what you can do for future generations, your kids, grandkids, and even great-grandkids. Family protection trusts. That is our firm's proprietary version of what is generically known as the dynasty trust. Why does Bernie Sanders want to get rid of these? That's not a political statement. He's on record saying he doesn't think these should be allowed. Why is that? There's a lot written. If you Google the term dynasty trust, you'll learn bits and pieces about this. It's been in the media many times. Wall Street Journal has written about these many times. These are known trusts, but they previously, I think, have been only known for ultra high net worth families. And it's kind of our mission to let everybody know about this and to let everybody have this option for their family. It shouldn't just be billionaire families. Now, why would you do this? And when we talk about family protection trusts, think of this in your mind's eye as, you have your living trust, mom and dad's living trust. When you pass away, instead of leaving money directly to your kids, let's say you have a son and a daughter, you don't leave it directly to your son and your daughter. You leave it to a family protection trust for your son and a family protection trust for your daughter. Now, why would you leave it to a trust and not to your kid directly? Maybe they're totally responsible, they're great, they're doing well. 3 big reasons. 1, divorce happens. No matter how good a relationship is at the beginning, you never know. If your child gets divorced and if they commingle their inheritance over time, a huge portion of it could get lost in a divorce settlement. If it's in a family protection trust, it stays separate, it's not commingled, it's protected from an ex-spouse. And especially, we have some clients who really don't like their kids' spouses and they're just like counting the days so they think they're going to split up. If that's an issue, you got to protect it because bad things happen otherwise. If your child is sued, car accident, or a bad business deal, there's a high level of protection provided by the Family Protection Trust. If you inherit money directly, it's in your name, it is absolutely reachable in a lawsuit. If it's in a Family Protection Trust, there's a barrier. There's a high level of protection protecting that money. We can't guarantee it's ironclad completely, but there are very few court cases of people successfully breaking these. It's a huge disincentive for anyone going after your kid. It's like creating a sort of a fortress around the money you left your child. Very, very powerfully, and this is hard to wrap your head around, but when your children pass away, if you leave them money directly, everything that you left them, plus everything that they earn during their lives, is part of their taxable estate. So when they pass away in 30, 40, 50 years, whatever estate tax laws are at that time, that will govern how much Uncle Sam takes. And we don't know what they'll be. But if you look at the federal budget deficit going up and up and up every year, I think there's a very reasonable argument to be made. They could be a lot more strict in the future. You could lose your family could lose 50% or more of what you left your kids and the future growth. If it's in a family protection trust, virtually all of it and future growth is protected from that. It doesn't get touched by the estate tax when it goes to your grandkids. That can be amazingly powerful. That's where you have exponential growth of assets that can avoid estate tax. And you might be thinking, well, this is all cool, but I don't want to tie my kids' hands. I don't want them to have to answer to some random trustee and the complexity of a trust. Your child can be his or her own trustee. They can be their own trustee. If you trust them, they can be in charge of their own trust. So you don't have to necessarily tie their hands. They can have their cake and eat it too, sort of. And these trusts last for about 100 years. So it's really protections. It's a prenuptial agreement for your kids, your grandkids, and even your great grandkids. Again, not just for the ultra wealthy, high net worth families, dynastic wealth families have been doing versions of these for a long time. And we think everybody should have the option of doing this. And if you own a house in the Bay Area, your estate justifies doing this. So we want to let you know that these are available.
Right, and actually, before we go on, I'm always reminded of one of the greatest lines I've ever heard when it comes to really thinking about protection of the estate for the grandkids, because that's, they're perfect, right? The grandkids are perfect. So Gore Vidal, right? Many of you remember Gore Vidal. He's passed away. He was kind of a social critic, a curmudgeon-y kind of guy, but very articulate, often on television. And he was giving a talk on the East Coast one day many years ago, and he was talking about families, and he was talking about values. And at one point, he says to this audience, as he's giving his perspective and his wisdom, he says to everybody, he says, when it comes to this kind of thing, he said, don't have kids, he said, have grandkids, right?
And on that note, congratulations to my dad, because I just had a nephew. He had his first grandson born about a month ago, Miles Ethan Gilfix West. He's healthy. He's a month old. So congratulations, Dad.
Yes, thanks.
Little pressure off of me to have more grandkids, to make more grandkids for you. I'm sure it won't.
It won't.
Some nice family news that we had in the last month, and an otherwise very tough fall. Let's just go back to this. Let's revisit the mystery here with Larry and Wyatt. Both Larry and Wyatt inherited $2 million was left for their benefit. Larry got divorced, got sued, ended up with nothing for his kids and obviously nothing for his grandkids. Wyatt, on the other hand, same divorce, same lawsuit, same financial universe, and yet there was $6 million for his kids and $18 million for his grandkids. What's the difference? Wyatt's father created a family protection trust, left the money to Wyatt in the trust, whereas Larry left it to him. Larry's dad left it to him directly. So when Larry got divorced, he commingled, a big chunk lost. When he got sued, the rest was gone. Wyatt, when he got divorced, inheritance was separate. When he got sued, barrier, the litigant wasn't able to get at that money. It grew to $6 million when he passed away, and then it was protected through his children's life and untouched by the estate tax, grew to $18 million. And if assets grow at a value of 6 to 7% per year, which is not that aggressive, they double every 10 to 12 years. So 6 million going to 12 million, going to 24 million is not outside of the realm of possibility. So that's where these numbers can get mind-bogglingly big if you plan ahead the right way. So these are extraordinary trusts and extraordinary investments.
And by the way, I hope you can see why. I mean, we virtually see that trust as a no-brainer. We really do. We don't like to hammer too much on things like that, but it's so protective and it's so respectful of your kids and so wise for your grandkids and great grandkids that, if you just think about it for a minute, I mean, it's just like, why wouldn't you do that? Kids can have control. They decide how to invest the money. They decide how to enjoy the money and all of these protections. So, geez, they make such sense. So, okay, so let's move on to the special needs area. This is not a webinar about special needs. We do a 2-hour webinar about special needs. That's another time. It's a major area of work for us because, a lot of families have this issue. And if you don't directly in your family, somebody who does. It might be a child on the autism spectrum, could be alcohol abuse, drug abuse. It could be all kinds of diagnoses or issues or problems that bottom line make it impossible for that child to work and make a living. And if that's the case, there's a number of government programs that can provide income, health insurance, housing. But for all of those, you have to qualify, typically in terms of having modest assets, the right kinds of assets. So if you leave assets directly to that child or in the family protection trust, they're going to lose eligibility for those programs. So for those kids, the special needs trust is the appropriate approach to take. Any amount of money can be in a special needs trust, and it doesn't count. It doesn't interfere with eligibility. So you're letting the kid retain eligibility for government benefits and have this financial safety net, sometimes holding the house in which the child lives. That's in the trust. It doesn't interfere. So you're dramatically enhancing the quality of life for your child, if disabled, for his or her entire lifetime. They're kind of a must-do if you have that situation.
And we just
brand new 3rd edition of our book, by the way. We just published it like 2 weeks ago. It integrates information about the ABLE Act, which is another kind of a new development in the world of special needs planning. So it's one of our 3 books that we'll revisit a little bit later.
Yeah, special needs planning is a huge part of our practice, something we're very proud of.
Yeah.
So just want to make you aware, if there's someone in your circle, a friend, or you have a family member with special needs on the autism spectrum, this is something you need to be aware of. Not going to spend much time on this, but we alluded to this earlier, your power of attorney. A lot of people think of this as sort of a throwaway document. You do a trust. Okay, we'll also do the power of attorney. It governs your day-to-day finances. It governs, dealing with the government, dealing with the utility company, a bunch of other issues. A lot of people just do check the box forms. And we see some people who work with attorneys and they'll come back with check the box forms. There's nothing wrong with that inherently. That will cover most of what you need. But critically, if you just do those simple forms, it doesn't cover some issues that we think are absolutely necessary. And that relates to long-term care planning. We're not talking about that much tonight, but you can protect your home and other assets if you need nursing home care. There's a lot of ways you can do that. But if you're incapacitated and your power of attorney doesn't address that, your family's hands are sort of tied. And from a tax standpoint, tax planning, what if you have dementia and you can't make financial decisions anymore? We need to rely on the power of attorney to see what your family members, your trusted gatekeepers, your trusted attorney in facts, what your people can do for you. And if you don't have language in your power of attorney, again, that explicitly addresses tax planning, your family might be very limited in what they can do. So having the magic words in your power of attorney can be worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or more in the rights if the situation arises. So you don't want just a simple check the box power of attorney. I'd say 80 to 90% of the power of attorney documents we review are missing critical language in these areas. Anything you add, Mike?
No, it just makes the point again. We're not simple. We're not generic. We have to be sophisticated as we look at what the law allows, what constraints there are, and what empowers us. So, it kind of comes down to planting the seeds for the future. We always hope for the best, but we always plan for the worst: incapacity, illness, etc.
Yeah. Now let's transition to that little election you may have noticed. And we're going to focus now on California. And there were really two propositions we were keeping a close eye on. That was Prop 15, which would have allowed for Prop 13 protections to go away for commercial and industrial properties. That lost. So we're not going to spend any time on it. Mm-hmm. Prop 19, we already talked about this a bit, that passed. This is the proposition that I think you need to understand. And I think not a political statement, not for or against it, but I think if voters really knew what it was and really understood it, I think it probably would have been a different outcome. I've never seen a proposition with more confusion where people really didn't understand it. As you said, Mike, KQED was reporting on it. They got it wrong recently. They're still getting it wrong. Major implications. So let's explore that a little bit. So Mike, why don't you just go through this again?
Yeah, I think on this one, we can be very quick because we've made the point, we illustrated it earlier. The Prop 58 exemption, which allowed us to pass along our homes and other real property up to a limit of $1 million for other property, gone. Gone. It's like remarkable. So the increase in property taxes that are going to happen when we pass away and pass assets to the next generation, it's astounding. Again, only 1 million, maybe no protection for passing the residence to the kids if they don't live in it. But even if they do, it's only $1 million worth of protection. Now, other real property, nada, nothing. So tens of thousands, could be even more, some of the homes that we have around here. Yeah. And you do that per year. Think about the math. Think about the exposure.
Forever, in perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
Yeah. So it's a huge deal. And so you want to explore it? Yeah.
So let's go again. We don't want to be too repetitive, but it just because there's so much confusion about this, we're going to be a little repetitive and be really sure. Okay. So before 2021, February 15 of 2021, if property passes to the kids, there's going to be the residents, there's no change. If other property passes to the kids, up to the cap there is $1 million per giver transfer or of assessed value. So you could have a fourplex valued at $2 million, but the assessed value may be $800,000. So you could pass that along and there would be no property tax increase. Come February 16, just a few months away, we have some protection for the residents. You got that. But again, everything else is reassessed. Okay, so let's look at the last slide to just go through this. Well, we want to revisit. We looked at Tom, Jill, and Amos, remember?
That should be Prop 19, not Prop 21. Whoops. Sorry about that.
I should say Prop 19, re-emphasizing. Okay, remember, Amos did the right thing. He avoided it all, but the other two had some serious problems. The rental property, here we go. Example one, here, real practical stuff. Bill has a fourplex, assessed value, $200,000, bought it a long time ago. Prop 13, $200,000, market value, $2 million. He passes away and the property taxes go from $2,000 to $20,000 a year. And then that's going to be increasing annually indefinitely. So you think about the net income they're receiving from that fourplex, vacancies these days because of COVID. I mean, it just changes the landscape and it undercuts the security here that Bill wanted to leave for his family. Andre, fourplex, same values, but of course, what he did was some good planning. Because he did his planning, property taxes remain at $2,000 a year. I mean, is that a dramatic difference or is it not? So, if you act before then, there are steps we can take to lock in this protection. It's not for everybody. We have to look at your situation. There are countervailing tax considerations, maybe a state tax that maybe argue for not doing this. It's identifying the tax exposure that you have and figuring out what approach is best for you. But if you're going to tackle this problem, you really have to do it now. You have to do it now and make sure that when we say coordinate it with family protection trust, that means that as you pass along ownership of real property, remember, you're not passing it directly to your kids. You're going to pass it to these family protection or dynasty trusts so that we can capture all of these protections for the next generation as you capture these tax benefits as you do your planning right now.
Yeah, as Mike said, I think the key point we might make is you got to get some good advice about this before February 15th. Because once that happens, the planning options, there's always options. We can always figure out some strategies, but they get a lot harder. And you got to understand all these.
Let me say, don't come see us on February 14 to fix it. A little like, we have to talk it through, figure out the best plan for you. And then it takes time to put into place whatever plan is going to make sense. So obviously, the sooner the better. So you have time to think it through, craft the plan that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, that's our deadline, not to come see, but to get it done.
Yeah, we're seeing a wave of interest in our existing
yeah,
already. So if you're interested in this, I would say set a meeting with us sooner rather than later so we have time to explore it. Let's transition a little bit. And I see we're getting a lot of questions. We're going to get to those at the end. We'll try to explore as many as we can. Want to get through these really important topics. Again, the federal election. You might have heard something about this over the last few weeks, months, years. I think if you lived under a rock, you still probably heard about the 2020 election. So we have Joe Biden as the president-elect. The Senate's actually up in the air. We actually don't know what's happening yet. It looks like it will be GOP controlled, Republican controlled, but we still have 2 runoffs in Georgia. So who knows what will happen? I think all conventional wisdom's out the window. I have no idea. I think it's probably more likely than not that Republicans hold the Senate. In fact, far more likely. So if that happens, if Democrats have Congress and the presidency, but Republicans have the Senate, it means probably gridlock. It means that probably there probably will not be major substantial changes to the estate tax in the next 2 years, maybe longer. But it doesn't mean you can rest on your laurels. We'll have to keep a close eye on how things change in the next couple of months and the next couple of years after that. But will tax laws change? So, again, we'll have to wait and see, but we think that we can take some pretty big steps in the near term, feeling confident that we can do them. But with tax laws, we know what the law is right now. We know we can take a bunch of steps right now. We can never guarantee the future. But historically speaking, if you take steps when the laws are more favorable and laws get more strict later, the IRS doesn't usually undo the good steps you took. So when there's a good environment, it's always a good time to take steps to protect your assets. They might get harder in the future. Will trust law change? We mentioned that some politicians don't like family protection trusts and dynasty trusts. We don't see that changing. We think these trusts are going to be effective long into the future. We see nothing that will change that. And we think to a large extent, we can plan with some good certainty. Even barring how the election turns out in Georgia in the next few weeks. There's a lot that we can do, but it's important to understand the rules that are at play here. So Mike, why don't you go through a little bit about the estate? Actually, before that, I have a visual for this. The death tax. This is something that I found I thought was funny. This might be the image you have of the death tax, although if you really look at this closely, and I give credit to the cartoonist, is the Grim Reaper getting the tax bill? Is he going to pay it for somebody? Like, if that's the case, that's not a bad tax. If the Grim Reaper will pay my taxes. Anyway, it doesn't really make sense, but I think it strikes fear in people's heart when they hear the term death tax, which is actually a misnomer. It's an estate tax. But Mike, why don't you talk about the estate tax?
Sure. By the way, I think the Grim Reaper is putting the tax bill into the mailbox.
Better. That's probably a better interpretation.
So, yeah.
Hey, here's the thing. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So, okay, so let's just talk for a moment about what the estate tax is and what it isn't. Okay, so it is a 40% tax. Now, the level of protection is very, very high this year. It's the highest it has ever been, except for 1 year where it was eliminated, where there was no estate tax. That only happened for 1 year. So this year, an individual can pass along $11.58 million to the next generation, and there's no estate tax. It's only the amount over 11.58, if anything, that's exposed to the 40% tax. So that means for a couple, it's like 23 million. And by the way, it looks like the numbers have been released that come January 1, the level of individual protection is going to be about 11.7 million. Again, it's indexed and it continues going up for a while. Okay, this is a tax on the estate. So when someone passes away, you add up everything they have and you look at the numbers, and if there's too much, which is a blessing, you know, if it's got to be over 11.5 million or so, the tax is paid. And then after the tax is paid, money is distributed to the beneficiaries or to the trusts that you've established for the beneficiary. So the receipt of the inheritance is not taxed. There's some states where it's not taxed. That's retained. Importantly, we have no estate or inheritance tax in California. We got rid of it with a voter initiative many years ago. There's about 12 states that do have it. So it isn't like it's unheard of. And there have been murmurs in the California Assembly about reintroducing the estate tax to capture more taxes. And I think that's entirely possible, but there's nothing in the hopper right now. So we're really, that's not imminent. We're not looking at that right now. And even when it happens, it tends to be a relatively small tax. But actually, we are in California. I should watch what I say. But nothing's happening yet. It's a federal tax that we're looking at, and we're just being careful about it. Now, are you exposed to the estate tax or are you not? The first thing to say is that if you just right now kind of think about the value of your estate, I would wager that it's more than you think it is. Our consistent history over the years is that when we sit down with somebody, we say, what's the estate worth? Whatever they say, it ends up being at least 20% more than they've said. Sometimes they undervalue assets. Sometimes they didn't realize what assets are part of the taxable estate. So, okay, real property that you own, your home, other property, obviously that's part of your estate. Investments, IRAs, 401ks, not the after income tax value, the gross value of the IRA is in your taxable estate. If you have life insurance, if you pay the premiums, if you own the policy, the death benefit, which could be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, that's part of your taxable estate. If you have property, Mark alluded to that cabin in Michigan. If I had that property in another country, that's part of my taxable estate as well. And you also have to consider the growth in value because, your death is going to happen many years down the road. So get a factor of whatever, 5%, some growth factor. And also, by the way, many of you are going to inherit assets. So that has to be taken into account as well. So inevitably, invariably, your estate is worth more than you think it is. So you have to be cognizant and you have to be thinking, especially in light of what Mark is going to talk about right now.
Yes. So you heard the terms 11.7 million. And if you're like me, you're thinking, okay, that's a good problem to have. I'm not close to that. Maybe, and some of you in this audience, I'm sure, do face this exposure. A lot of our clients do, but many of us don't. Again, good problem to have, but you might be thinking, okay, well, then why am I thinking about this? Well, we've gotten some people raising their hands. 2026 or sooner, if you're a Game of Thrones fans, winter is coming. You'll understand what that means. I don't even think you have to be a Game of Thrones fans to understand that this is not a good thing. Winter is coming is usually pretty ominous. So raise your hand. You can do it figuratively or through here if you hope to be alive in 6 years by 2026. So I see people raising their hands. That's kind of, I can't see you, but I see a bunch of people raising their hands. That's awesome. If you're going to be alive that long, the law is definitely going to change. Why is that? Because the current law will sunset. Even if nothing happens, if Congress and the Senate are all gridlocked, the current law sunsets on January 1st, 2026. At that time, the exemption will be cut in half. It will go from 10 million indexed with inflation to 5 million indexed with inflation. It will go down by 50%. And that's where, if you have a house in California, if you have other assets, again, you might think not an issue. If your house is growing at 7% a year, 8% per year, if you have a house in certain cities in the Bay Area, you're already probably going to be at or above that limit just with a home. And if you have other assets, and if you're lucky enough to have a larger estate, you definitely will have some estate tax issues, and things could change before then. Again, maybe the Georgia runoff will be won by the two Democratic candidates. In that case, it's possible this could change sooner. We have elections coming up in 2 years. We have elections coming up in 4 years. A lot could change, and we're in uncharted waters when it comes to trying to predict what happens in elections. I have no idea what will happen. I don't think anybody does, but a lot could change. So you want to be aware of this, and you want to take the steps that you can while we know we're allowed to take them. And we've literally written a book on there. Mike has written a book on this. But Mike, why don't you go through some of the specific steps that people can take or explore now, no matter what the law is like, and to take advantage of what it is right now?
Sure. And if there are any changes, by the way, over the next few years, the level of estate tax protection is not going to go up. It's not going to go up. It could go down. It's probably going to remain the same, at least for 4 to 8 years would be my guess, but it's not going to go up. There'd have to be a Republican president, Senate, and House for that to happen. Okay. So what can you do? We already talked about the need to appropriately structure your trust. If it's appropriately structured, a married couple can effectively double the level of individual protection and more. And there's capital gains tax protections that you capture with the appropriate trust structure. What else can you do? There's myriad opportunities. At the bottom line, by the way, I want to emphasize the book that we just updated. The third edition is being printed. We don't have it available at this moment, but the second edition is available, and it identifies all of these planning strategies, and it's complete in this regard. Okay, there's a personal residence trust, a trust that's designed. This is different from what you might do to retain low property taxes. It's different. It's looking at avoiding estate taxes. Again, we have different perspectives depending on the size of your estate. So that's a trust that can be used to reduce estate tax exposure. Family limited partnerships, especially if you have business assets or investment properties, that can be the perfect tool that allows for something called discounting, very powerful. Charitable remainder trust. There's tax benefits, and particularly if there's a charitable entity, a school, a cause, an issue that you want to support, that can be a perfectly appropriate tool where you're getting income, tax benefits, and you're also supporting a charity that you love. Okay. Irrevocable life insurance trust. I mentioned that if you own a life insurance policy, the death benefit is part of your taxable estate. If the policy is properly structured and owned and held within an irrevocable life insurance trust, then the death benefit is not part of your taxable estate. I mean, that alone could save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've talked about family protection trusts. They don't save estate tax protection for you, but they save, or should save, probably will save, a fortune in estate taxes for your kids, right? So remember, we're thinking multi-generationally, not just how do we protect your estate from estate tax, but also your kids for the benefit ultimately of the grandkids, so that we're keeping the generations protected as we go forward.
And Mike just went through so many different
many things.
This isn't even all of them, but you don't need to understand what each of these are. There's no quiz. The point is there's no one size fits all approach. And depending on the situation, we can come up with different solutions. And there's trade-offs with all of these. And there's also things you can do every year. You can give away $15,000 a year to as many people as you want without even reporting it to the IRS. You can pay tuition or medical expenses for people. There's a lot of other simpler things. But again, we think holistically, and you have to think holistically in this world. So that's the key. And circling back to what I said before, do I have to think about this if I don't have over $5 million? Yes, you do. You got to be aware of this. The tax is so punishing if you get hit with it. It just wipes out. If you think about what we all do, we work so hard to earn money, to try to optimize our investments. You work day and night. All the times you decided not to get the ocean view room, you got the slightly cheaper room. The times that you didn't upgrade your flight to first class, you did economy. All those things to save money. A couple missed opportunities in your estate plan can wipe out every good decision you make in your entire life. The stakes are really, really high. So I think the key is solutions exist. We are big on multi-generational planning. Mike and I have written articles about this in legal journals. We've trained other attorneys about this approach. We've spoken at national conferences. We think the old way of doing things, where an attorney works with mom and dad, puts the documents in a drawer and doesn't talk about them. Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. But in a good family environment, we want to involve everyone in the family to talk about this, because the best planning is done in a multi-generational way. And we've worked with thousands of families, written books on this, articles on this. Many of you in the audience know us already about this. We've saved many families millions and millions of dollars just because they took the right steps. And again, just imagine what you can achieve for your children, yourself, your children, and your grandchildren if you just are armed with the right information. And you are armed with the right information. You need to build the right team. And of course, we would love the opportunity to be part of that team. We write the books on this subject. So sort of on that line of thinking, Mike and I co-authored a book called Facing the Reality of Long-Term Care. How can you protect your assets if you need expensive long-term care? We co-authored Special Needs Trust Creation and Management Guide, very creatively named, on special needs planning. And Mike authored Beat Estate Tax Forever. So we do provide copies of these to new clients. And for existing clients, if you ask us, we can give you a copy of one of them. We also make these available for sale if you're interested in getting them. But we've thrown a lot at you, and this isn't about books. That's not what we're here for. We're proud of our books, but really we want you to take this as an opportunity. You know, what we've thrown a lot at you, and your head might be spinning a little bit. I think the key thing we want you to take away is that there's a lot that can be done, and building the right team is critical, because if you have the right team, you don't have to worry about knowing everything. You can offload that to your team. So don't miss this opportunity. If you take these steps, you sometimes hear the term smart money. You know, the smart money is betting on the 49ers. The smart money is going into Bitcoin or whatever it is. You are the smart money. You have this knowledge. You can take these steps. It's not just the ultra high net worth dynastic families that can do this. You can do this too. So we welcome you to set an appointment with us, to meet with our team. We can review your existing plan and help you develop a new plan going forward. And then this is about ongoing planning over time. As laws change, as your situation changes, we can help you. And we've helped many of our clients for decades. We're very proud of our heritage. And Mike, why don't you just talk a little bit more just about us and what we try to do?
Sure. You know, I think, frankly, Mark, you know, I think we've already said it, and I'll just keep it very short and very sweet. That, you know, we invite you to become our clients. By the way, we do not offer free consultations. We haven't for years. We don't need to. We offer very practical, impactful advice in an initial meeting. So we do charge for an initial meeting, and if we do documents, we do flat fees that, as our many clients know, are very reasonable. We always quote a fee in advance. You never have a surprise. That would never be a good idea. We're comprehensively able. And, you know, again, we don't just do the planning for you, we maintain the plan. We have what's called our Peace of Mind program, where we have like over 400 clients as members, and we're constantly in touch. We're available. There's discounts. You know, we just take excellent care going forward. So, you know, it would be a privilege to meet with you. It's what we're here for. It's what we live and work for. So we do invite you. So let's take a look at how you would do this. Mark, would you just go through this, please?
Yeah. So of course you could just call us. Our number is 650-493-8070. We'll get to questions in just a moment. You can call our office. You can email Ashley on our team. I think she probably was the one who sent you the link. So Ashley, spelled ASHLEIGH, I screw that up sometimes, at gilfix.com. And if you can also, if you'd like us to reach out to you, we figured the simplest way is you can just put it in the Q&A function. No one else will see it. We're the only ones that see it. We're going to compile the names and contact information for those of you who want us to reach out. And with Prop 19 and with some of the changes on the horizon, we have had a surge of interest in meeting with us. So we invite you to do that sooner rather than later. The clock is ticking. You might not take action. You might decide you don't want to do it, but you got to be informed, and we can help you with that. We can review your plan and we can identify the steps you might take. So you can, of course, reach out to Ashley, call us. No one's here right now or after hours. We can email Ashley or enter your name and your information in the Q&A function, and we will reach out to you tomorrow. But, you know, we welcome you to become our clients. But even if you don't become our clients, we hope you got a lot out of this. Knowledge is power. And I hope this helped you understand Prop 19 more, helped you understand why you need a trust, power of attorney, advanced directive, family protection trust, why these are so important. Knowledge is power. So on that note, let's go through a couple questions, and then we'll We will get you guys out of here at a reasonable time.
Yeah, and I have one that I see, by the way, here, and this is a really good one. It says, should everyone, and the word everyone is underlined, should everyone do as we suggest about Prop 19 and the residents? No. I mean, I think for the vast majority of us, yes, because it's practical, it's doable, the steps that you would have to take. But if you have a much larger estate, there are other tax approaches that might make even more sense. So again, it isn't like everybody does this. It's what's right for you. It's looking at your situation, talking with you. And we have a checklist. We know how to go through this very efficiently. So most of us, yes. Everybody, no. We're individual. We have other issues and goals.
Yeah, and as we dive in, we have some really good questions. Good question about Prop 19. Is there an exemption for someone with a developmental disability who inherits a house? No, we're not aware of one. Yeah, and you do maybe need to start writing your California state representative. A lot of people with special needs could be in big trouble inheriting a house from mom and dad.
I didn't talk about that. That's one of my biggest concerns. So many of our clients have a special needs child, and the whole plan for that child is that she's going to be able to stay in the residence, the only home she's ever known, and that's the life plan for her. And because property taxes have not gone up, and that was going to be viable, they might have had a lot of other cash. Now, with the property tax increase, that threatens the plans that hundreds, maybe thousands of families have put into place for kids with special needs.
Yeah, and we got a lot of questions about Prop 19. And to be clear, these are not reassessments that will happen right away for mom and dad. These are when it goes to the kids, whether it's when mom and dad pass away after February 15th, 2021, unless they took the right steps, or if they give it away to their kids after February 15th, 2021. And we had questions about if they're living there, does that change it? So again, even if a kid's living in the house, that only protects the first $1 million in value. If the house is worth more than $1 million, there will likely be a reassessment. Let's see some other good questions. Mike, any that you'd want to go over as I scroll through some?
Yeah. There's one other. It's about the estate tax avoidance, the 11.58 million. So the question raises this point that it's a transfer tax. So many folks, this only affects a few of you. If you have a very, very large estate, it is possible to, rather than die and take advantage of the $12 million worth of protection from estate tax, you can actually give away. You can give away up to almost 12 million each, get it out of your estate, and then when the estate tax protection comes down, you've already removed $24 to $30 million from your estate. So you can do it by gift as an alternative to waiting until you pass away. So, and many, many people with larger estates are doing exactly that.
Yeah, and I got a question about how are family protection trusts taxed? Are they like special needs trusts? So if you leave money to a family protection trust, the family protection trust is a separate taxpayer. It's not super complicated. There are some implications. That's to file tax returns each year, but that's how it protects all these assets. So you would do a separate one for each child, and they're just so powerful. A lot of good questions about property issues. Whenever there's questions about, should I be on title, should I not be, we got to explore it in detail. We got to really set a meeting. There are so many minefields that we have to avoid when it comes to property and title issues. We got to be very careful there.
Wow, so many questions. Wow.
Yeah, a question about the flat fee for a trust. Mike, you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. So I admit it, I hate to do this because we have a presumptive fee for our documents. Sometimes people bring to us extremely complicated situations and it can be higher. For a single person, assuming that there's nothing crazy going on, the fee is typically $1,800, under $2,000. I mean, our fees are reasonable. It isn't like, we're at the max. Our fees are lower than many, many, many attorneys who do this kind of work. Higher than some. For the Family Protection Trust, the Dynasty Trust, our typical fee is $3,100. And if we do if there's two kids, we don't double it. We don't come close to doubling it. So again, our fees are very, especially when you think about the impact, it's one of the best investments you could ever possibly make. So we do have flat fees. Those can be a little bit different than what I said, but that's it gives you the flavor.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people have written in some good questions, some contact information. We're going to make sure we get all of this.
Right.
Yes, and when we see some good questions from some existing clients as well, I'm trying to get to these. A lot of people want to talk about the Prop 19 solution. So again, to talk about that, we need to set a meeting. As Mike said, we bill hourly for those. We want to make sure we're giving you value from the moment you step in, and that we can give you great advice. We want to just have a couple minutes where we talk about it a little bit, but don't really know the situation. We want to give you great value questions about 1031 exchange, so many good questions.
Yeah.
So
let's just say 1031
yeah,
exchanges, which some of you know about, are
yeah,
extremely powerful. We facilitate many of them. Can save a fortune if you're selling your home. It can be your home or other real property. So again, that's a different approach, something we didn't talk about tonight at all.
yeah, yeah. And the question about what is the Prop 19 solution? There's a few different ones, you know, we're developing as we go. We're learning a lot. We have a solution that we believe will be effective. We're studying it right now to make sure that it works. This law just passed like yesterday.
It's going to work.
It's
going to work.
It'll work. Anyway, okay. So I want to making sure we get all the information down for the people who asked us to reach out. Everybody, thank you so much to our existing clients. Hope you got something out of this. We reiterated some stuff you may have already known. For those of you who don't know us yet, thank you for giving us some of your time. You know, we're grateful for you giving us that incredibly valuable gift, which is, again, your time and attention. So again, we hope you got a lot out of it. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope everybody's staying sane out there. It's just such a crazy time. So thank you guys all, and have a great night.
Good night. We look forward to meeting you.